So there's this news story from about a month ago where a man says that he was shopping at a Barnes& and Noble, shopping for books for his grandchildren, when a store employee confronted him and said that a woman had complained about the fact that he was in the children's section, and that the store has a policy that men are not allowed to be in the children's section by themselves, at which point he was ejected from the store as a potential child molester or sex offender. Now, all the facts haven't come out about this yet, and Barnes& and Noble hasn't released an official statement or response to this. Individual Brandt hasn't really made a statement about this. At this point, this story, as far as I'm aware, hasn't progressed much further than the man. We know the man was ejected from the store, and we know that that he's upset about it. He's making these allegations. He's apparently hired a legal expert considering legal action. And the thing is, if the store, it's, of course you want to protect children, but if the store has a policy that they're enforcing where men aren't allowed to be in the children's section by themselves, and you can't do that. That's absolutely outrageous. And if that turns out to be what was going on, then that's going to really affect my ability to enjoy going to Barnes & Noble is the only brick-and-mortar bookstore I have access to. And how could I enjoy? And there are lots. I buy books as gifts for relatives, for friends, and there's stuff that's some young adult stuff that's sometimes in the children's section. And how am I going to enjoy shopping for books knowing that some crazy person could potentially just complain that, oh, there's a man in the bookstore, I don't like that he's there because I'm scared he's going to molest my children, throw him out for me. I do think that this was an isolated incident unique to this store, because this store is specifically concerned about child molesters in bookstores or whatever. So I don't think that all Barnes & Nobles across the country have this policy in place. I know this is a unique occurrence, but knowing that this is something that happened in one store, that's going to make me have to think twice about going to Barnes & Noble to how I carry myself. Am I going to have to worry about getting out of the children's section before someone calls the cops on me or something? And now this man, let me look at my notes here. This man, his name is Omar Amin. He is a director of the Parasitology Center in Scottsdale, Arizona. He's an expert in infectious disease. He has a doctorate in zoology and parasitology from Arizona State University. And I say all that to say that this is an accomplished individual. He's not just some wastrel who's trying to trump up a lawsuit, or some Jack McClellan type guy who's just some creepy guy who's going around going after kids. And I don't say that to say that the fact that he does have an educated background means that he's intrinsically more trustworthy, or intrinsically he's not intrinsically more trustworthy because he has an educated background, but it just sort of establishes this isn't just some random creepy guy. This is a grandfather shopping for books for his grandchildren. And according to the story so far, this woman complained to the store that he was in the bookstore, and the store possibly had this policy that men aren't allowed to be by themselves in the bookstore. What is it? If he had a wife with him, then that means, okay, he's safe now. Or if he had a kid with him, oh yeah, because people who have wives and people who have children, they never are sex offenders or dangerous or any way, shape, or form, right? You can't. And I got into a bit of a bit of a heated debate with a pal of mine on my blog, where I blogged about this and saying, now this is something I'm going to have to think about, and it's something that's going to be on my mind the next time I'm in a Barnes & Noble. And basically, they brought up the possibility, all the facts aren't out, which is true at this point. And what if this guy had a history of inappropriate behavior in the store? And I like this pal that had this discussion with, known him for years. I've trusted my life's work to you. I've, we go way back. You're the most one of the most awesome people I know. So I'm not like just mad at you, but you can't. And I spent a couple of I spent a couple of weeks thinking this over before I responded. Am I being unreasonable? Am I being irrational and overreacting? And the store is just doing their due diligence to protect the children. And I spent a while to think about this, and I really don't think I have to disagree. You can't jump. You can't jump to the you can't immediately propose that, well, maybe he had a history of inappropriate behavior in the store, when according to everything that's out, that's not the case. And if that's what happened, let's say this guy had an inappropriate history of inappropriate behavior in the store, and he was like trying to sneak pictures of kids with his cell phone, or he was on some watch list where he was banned from the store for inappropriate behavior. If that's the case, then if Barnes and Noble's PR team, I would hope that they would just jump on that and say, oh, and just shoot this guy's accusations down and say, oh, he has a history of inappropriate behavior in the store. He was banned. He was asked not to come back. He's, on a sex offender watch list or whatever. And that's not what they came out with. They've basically come out and said, no comment. And I guess he's written letters and stuff and is pursuing. Omar Amin is pursuing some kind of apology or something from Barnes and Noble for this having happened, and you can't. And one thing, me and my friend were talking about this. One thing we did agree on: this woman's probably nuts, and yeah, even if this woman is nuts, and you could say like, oh, they have to protect the children, but it's like, if let's say they had an incident where someone was taking pictures, trying to take upskirt pictures of kids or trying to touch kids or something, then you ban them from the store. You call the cops, and you take their photo, you have their description and everything, and then if you see them, if they show up, you throw them out and you call the cops. But you can't go from that, if that was even the case, because that's not even the specific case as far as I'm aware of. But you can't then go from that and say, all right, men have no legitimate business being in the children's section of the store unless they have a woman with them or unless they have a child with them. You can't jump to that conclusion. I mean, if you embrace that mindset for the sake of protecting children, then basically you enter a world where anyone could just complain about, oh, that person makes me uncomfortable, throw them out the store. Or, oh, what's next? Libraries? Am I not allowed to be in the? Am I not allowed to enter the children's section of a library where they have, they have kids films, but they have films for, they have family films and films for all ages in the kids section too that are, in that section. And so, can I not go near there because I might, start diddling one of the kids? I mean, you can't go that far. And if you've ever personally experienced being wrongly suspected or of meaning harm to a store just from you walking in the door because of things you can't help, like your skin color or your gender, then you really it's hard to take a case like this where a store, this individual location of Barnes and Noble potentially had this really like overzealous policy of banning banning men from the children's section, but women are allowed, but men with children are allowed because men with children are safe, but men by themselves, they might be, dangerous sex offenders. And I think at this point we've agreed on this based on other things, but yeah, you can't take protecting children to that extreme where you basically ban half the human race from being in the store, because you can't start from the standpoint when you have this is a case of let's say the story played out as Omar Amin says. This is a case of preemptive judgment and, in short, prejudice. Not that the story hates men or that this is this crazy, sexist policy, but if this is the case, then you have the store preemptively judging men as, or this individual, if you want to say, oh, well, maybe he had a history of inappropriate behavior towards children in the store. Then when that was, and there's nothing in the story, the news story I'm responding to, raising that as a possibility, then that's sort of going from, that's taking the discussion from whether or not the story is question over whether or not this man is guilty or dangerous. And that's, you can't, when you discuss prejudice, you could discuss, the issues themselves, but you can't, it's wrong to discuss it from the standpoint as to whether or not the victim of the alleged prejudice is guilty of what he's being allegedly wrongly suspected of. So taking this as a reaction, my reaction is based on the story itself. And the story is that this incident happened in which the man was ejected from the bookstore, and that the man is complaining that he was ejected on the grounds of this policy that men aren't allowed to be by themselves in the children's section, and that he's seeking an official apology or acknowledgement from Barnes & Noble in response to this happening. That's what I'm responding to here. And I'm responding to just the potential of this story and this allegation, and based on that, now that's something that now I have to think about if I'm next time I'm in Barnes & Noble, if knowing that this potentially happened to someone. Now, the timing that this comes out in is interesting, because I just made a video before that discussing prejudice, a different sort of prejudice, but specifically in the context of a episode of a children's show, which tried to make this show to be a message explaining why prejudice is wrong to children, but they mishandled the message, and the message instead ended up becoming a discussion over whether or not the victim of the prejudice was evil or not. And so when you go from this man saying that, he was wrongly ejected from the store, to saying, oh, well, maybe he was a pervert, maybe had this history of inappropriate behavior in the store, when there's nothing specifically pointing to that, that's running the risk of jumping to that same sort of wrong conclusion when you just say, like, oh, they're just protecting the children. It's good to protect the children, but you could go overboard on anything. That's my thoughts on that story. And I actually made a video. I mentioned it before. I made a video review of this episode of a children's show. It's an episode of My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, and I did an extensive breakdown of this episode and why conceptually it failed in its message of serving as an educational tool to teach children about prejudice. So there'll be a link to that if you're interested in seeing that in the information box of this video. And me and this pal, we're on good terms. And you're a cool person. You're a very cool person, and you've gone out of your way to reject and eschew prejudice of all kinds. So I'm not saying you're prejudiced or anything. I think we're pretty much on equal terms on how we view this incident. So that's all. And it was nice. It was nice debating with you, because it's like they say, as stone sharpens stone, so does one man sharpen another. So it's fun. It's fun debating when you have opposing points of view. But ultimately, I think we're about on the same page on this story as it's developed so far. So that's that, and thank you very much for watching.